All right, Barb, we are on and live.
Great,
So I'll turn it over to you.
great. Thank you very much. Good morning, and welcome to the first of two, the other ones this evening, sessions to review the strategic plan. I'm thinking about calling it an institutional plan but I'll tell you why in a minute. Of the Museum and Education Department of the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. Museum and Education Department is comprised of staff that teaches all over the forest preserves, but are located in their offices at the Museum of the Grand Prairie and at the Homer Lake Interpretive Center. We have lots of goals that we want to achieve in the next 5 years. We have merged, made our strategic plan work with, as part of the Champaign County Forest Preserve District, their plan, which was released last year, or maybe 2 years ago. And we'd like to present it to you this morning, but we would like your input. So as we're walking our way through it to tell you about it, we would love you to write in the comments what you would like to know that about what we do or what we plan to do. We've gone through a fairly lengthy process to get to this point. So some of the questions may already have been asked and answered, and we'll just answer them again. But I think you probably didn't come here to watch me talk about how we got to a strategic plan, but just to hear about the plan. So I will start by, Pat, can we share the screen now? That's great. Thank you. And just let us know in the comments if you can't see it. There is a copy on our website right under our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram logos. So if you can't see it here, you can view it there. We Making connections, protecting nature is the vision of the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. And so that is what we bank this whole thing on. We want to make connections for people and between our cultural and our natural history. And we also want to foster this stewardship of nature as part of our departmental strategic plan. And I was going to say next, please, but I'm the person who has the is steering the bus. So, Kathy, did you want to talk about the mission?
Sure. Thanks, Barb. Good morning, everyone. So the Museum and Education Department here at CCFPD, our mission is we collect, preserve, and interpret the natural and cultural history of Champaign County and East Central Illinois for all generations.
And it occurs to me as you said that this has been pretty close to our mission for a really long time. But as you can see, it banks right into creating connections and protecting nature. Yes. But I didn't introduce myself, and I didn't introduce you, Kathy. So I'm Barb Wolfschlager-Garvey. I'm the director of the Museum and Education Department, and this is Kathy Snyder, and she is the interpretive naturalist. Have I got it right?
Yeah.
For the Homer Lake Interpretive Center, for our whole department, of course. Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. That's great. I appreciate it. And I think we're going to bring Pat Kane on next as our public program visitor services coordinator. Long title, big job. To talk about our vision and our values. Is that right, Pat? Go ahead.
Yep. If you could you proceed to the next page?
Oh yeah, I am driving the bus, as I said.
So yeah, as Barb mentioned, these are right in line with the Champaign County Forest Preserves District, Champaign County Forest Preserves District's if I can talk, a vision and mission as well. But our vision is inspiring audiences to create connections to our natural and cultural history, all about creating connections to our natural and cultural world out there. So that would be our vision. And our values, got a list of values here on the screen. First being respect. We respect the Grand Prairie's diverse cultures, environment, and resources. The next being engagement. We engage our community through collaboration with all people in Champaign County and East Central Illinois. Next one being wonder. We spark awe and wonder in our audiences through all learning experiences that we provide. Innovation being next. We lead our field in professional practices, innovating new methods and fresh ideas. Integrity being a value that we also have. We act with integrity in all our work, ethically and professionally. And lastly, empowerment. We work to empower each other throughout the Champaign County Forest Preserve District by sharing and developing expertise through teamwork.
Great, thanks. This is the first time we've had a values statement, so we'd love to have your input on that. We started probably 2 to 3 years ago working on this. Pandemic has slowed things down a little bit, but we've worked through these values for a long time, and this is we're really committed to being able to do our jobs with all of these embodied in all we do. As I said earlier, we coordinated with the Champaign County Forest Preserve District's strategic plan, and their outcomes were for environmental benefits, for connection to nature, for appreciation of the Grand Prairie heritage, and for organizational excellence. And you'll see those categories referred to as we move through our plan, because we want to coordinate everything with our parent organization's plan. Obviously, we're just really an extension. This is our extension of their goals. Their objectives were to protect nature, protect, conserve, preserve, and steward, to connect land and connect people, to educate, inspire, and lead, to promote healthy lifestyles through recreation, and to achieve organizational excellence. And it may seem like these are all very vague goals, but we do have some very specific ways we'd like to see these carried out. And I think you'll see a little bit more of that as we work our way through our 5 objectives. But if you want specifics about those, we're happy to answer questions about that. Going too fast, my friends. Okay, our first objective. Mark, you were going to talk about these, I believe.
Sure.
This is Mark Hanson, the curator at the Museum of Grand Prairie.
So our first objective has sort of two parts. The first is to maintain our existing infrastructure and improve facilities to meet community needs. And some of the subset items under that are replace the former large artifact storage building with the Rankin Center, which we have done and we're in the process of moving into. We want to continue work on replacing the Nature Center's building, which is definitely in need. We want to employ energy efficient solutions in projects and renovations, again, to help with the preserving the natural resources end of things. We want to continue to maintain facilities through capital funds. So making sure that this work, there's funding to do it and do it well, and move toward the green museum concept. So again, lower carbon footprint, energy efficiency, generally improving how we steward our resources. The key staff who will be working on that are the administrative staff. So Barb, the director, Pam, assistant director. Funding sources are capital funds, Grants are always a big one, and fundraising. And of course, timeline is long-term. These are some pretty big projects that will take some time to complete. And the document that guides that is this document, the strategic plan.
Okay. Thank you. So this is the first objective of the Forest Preserve, is protect, conserve, preserve, and steward. And how we meet this is by maintaining our existing infrastructure and improve the facilities that we do have. So that was and then also under preserve, conserve, protect, preserve, oh my God, too many words. Protect, conserve, preserve, and steward is the best practices in taking care of our natural and cultural history collections. And that is right square in the middle of Mark's job. So Mark, I'm going to let you talk about that one too.
Sure. So this next part, as Barb said, is use best industry practices to guide the care of our natural and cultural history collections. So basically those things that we hold in public trust, we want to make sure that we're taking care of properly. Subsets under that are preserve and steward collections through planning and practice. That's a huge part of what we take, what we don't take, and why we take or don't take something. Continue processing, inventorying, and organization of collections. Again, that's what I would call, intellectual control. We need to know what we have, where it is, what conditions it's in before we can use it effectively. Completion of the collections care plan, which is now complete. That document basically guides how we care for our collections to make sure that they are preserved for the longest possible time and maximize their usefulness. Maintain education and live animal collections. These collections are the subset of our collections that our visitors, students physically interact with. So those are very important for public programming, educational programming. Adopt natural conservation practices wherever possible. Again, making sure that we're good stewards of our resources. And the last one is attain accreditation for the Museum and re-accreditation for the Museum and Education Department. Again, that is an industry accreditation through American Alliance of Museums, which again is a signal of our ability to be a professional organization and an acknowledgement by our peers that we are indeed a professional organization working at the highest levels. Key staff are curatorial, so that is myself, our registrar, Jen Grove, and of course Kathy Snyder, who heads up the live animal work. Funding sources, we primarily have line items in our budget, our operating budget, and that's what we primarily work from. And a lot of these things are medium term and ongoing. So some of these things we need to continue doing forever. So properly caring for artifacts, there's no end date. We always want to be doing that. And the guiding documents, there are quite a few. Our collections plan, which basically helps us build some guideposts around what we do collect, what we don't collect, what we would like to collect, where we have gaps in the collection. The collections policy, which is basically the governance document, which sets up acquisitions, loans, deaccessions, sort of the rule book, if you will, of how we manage collections. And then lastly, the collections care plan is health and feeding of live animals and our object collections. We want to make sure that we are taking care of them in the best way possible, and that collections care plan helps us see issues, address issues, and then just continually push forward to keep doing a better and better job of how we care for collections.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. Obviously, this is a giant giant objective, but one that we have to really be on top of, or there's no point in us doing anything else if we can't maintain the buildings we have and the collections that we have. But what do we do with those things? That's the second objective. And I am going to call on, first I'm going to get to the second objective, connecting land and connecting people. Katie Snyder, you were going to do this one. Can you see it, Katie?
I can. Thank you.
Katie Snyder is our education program specialist at the Museum of the Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
She has a parallel at the Homer Lake Interpretive Center, Stacy Clements, who's out doing a program this morning.
She's out meeting these objectives.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
buddy. So yeah, I'm going to talk about objective number 2 of the Museum and Education Department at CCFPD. And that is to deepen connections to Champaign County's forest preserves through an array of recreational, educational, and cultural experiences. We are going to work with department heads to provide programming at all sites, which is pretty exciting. As Barb mentioned, I'm based at the Museum of Grand Prairie and Lake of the Woods, and Stacy is based at Homer Lake. We have Pat at Museum of the Grand Prairie. At Homer Lake, we have Jennifer and Stacy and Kathy and Quinn. And although we're based at those places, Homer Lake and Museum of the Grand Prairie and the Lake of the Woods Forest Preserve, we work at all sites, all the Forest Preserve sites. And each site not only offers something different that we can bring into our programming, but we're able to meet the needs of a different audience at each site. The second part is proactively pursue new technologies, virtual experiences, cutting edge ideas to reach new and traditional audiences. When I think about this one, I kind of think about the silver lining of the pandemic. Some of these things we kind of got booted into. New technologies, virtual experiences. We're a lot better at that than we were a little while ago, as the rest of the world is. But as we're doing that, we're reaching people we have not been able to reach before, just because we can reach people all over. So that opens up a whole other door while we still want to deal with the people that have been patrons for a long, long time. And the last one is near and dear to not only my heart, but everybody on this call today from Museum and Education, and that's actively pursue new audiences through programming designed with diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion goals. So we're building relationships. We're building on relationships that we've been working on for a long time, and we're doing a lot of listening to make sure that what we're coming up with DEI in mind is what our patrons want. The key staff on all these are administrative and programming staff. Funding source is the operating budget. Timeline is short to medium term and pretty much immediate. Some of this, that's short. And guiding documents is this interpretive plan.
Right. I think we have another objective 2, maybe 3 of them. Yes, you got way more to talk about, Katie.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
If you
do cultural competency internally and externally, nurture a welcoming environment promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. Like I said, that's really important to us. That's what we've been working on a lot in this department. So to do that, what we want to do is provide formal training for staff with community partners in cultural competency and inclusion. And we've just finished up one small part of that. Develop diversity of museum and ed advisory committee, another thing near and dear to our heart. We have an advisory committee that Barb might talk about a little bit more, that helps us decide, what artifacts we're going to take into our collection. Develop potential of Hoskins Archives for Cultural Diversity. You may have heard of the Hoskins Archives for Cultural Diversity. It's the largest local archives for African American history in our area. So we want to think about the ways in which we can make that more accessible to the public and make it more usable to the public. And there's been so much work that's gone on processing all that. Mark and his crew and interns and years and years of work has happened with that. And it's getting more and more usable all the time. Create programming and exam facilities for accessibility. Expand collaboration and translation opportunities. And coordinate efforts with ongoing CCFPD DEI efforts and plans. So within the whole forest preserve. And is this next one also? Yes, it is. Okay. Continuing on, evaluate and adjust services to meet evolving community needs and interests. With that, we're going to solidify partnerships with other Champaign County Museum Network institutions. We work with all the local institutions, and we have really great collaborations with them. Spurlock, Parkland Planetarium, Anita Purvis Nature Center, the list goes on and on, Champaign County History Museum, and we really do work well with each other. Continue current and develop new partnerships with University of Illinois, community groups, and like organizations. We've been doing a lot of work with Community Coalition, especially in the racial relations group, the racial relations subcommittee. And I think that's opened a lot of doors for some really exciting partnerships. Create a department-wide program plan to identify priorities, partnerships, and opportunities. Let's see. Do we have more here, Barb?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
And the staff and sources and timeline and guiding documents are all pretty much the same for all of the second objective.
Yeah, it runs through similar.
I mean, as I look at this, it's all very philosophical, and I realize that. And so I wanted to give people the opportunity to request a more specific plan. We do have like a spreadsheet where all of this is spelled out in actually how we're going to act on each one of these objectives. So the Community Coalition, for example, is mentioned in the partnerships part, right?
New American Welcome Center. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is all ongoing, but I'd be really curious to see what the community suggestions they might have for partnerships and contact them.
Why we're doing this today, right? And we would like we want your input on this. So I will give you at the end of this, I will give you my email address so you can email any comments you have to me if you don't want to put them out there in the comments today. But of course, you're also free to do that. Yeah. I think we're on objective 3. Indeed, we are. Educate, inspire, lead is the forest preserve objective, and our goals from that are going to be presented by Pat Kane. Is that right, Pat?
Yes. So this third objective is tied to the Forest Preserve District's strategic plan objective of educate, inspire, and lead, as was previously mentioned. And as part of this objective, we will work to we'll continue to provide positive learning experiences for people of all ages and abilities. Education and interpretation are huge in our department. And, we always love to try to provide as many different types of learning experiences for all people in Champaign County and beyond through our programs, through our exhibits, and any other form of interpretation that we provide. Some specific points that we'll use to accomplish these goals will include develop additional school programs and curricula to meet the changing needs of teachers and students, as well as work with the local regional office of education. In our department, each and every single year, we see thousands and thousands of school children in school programs, as well as through public programs. So we want to continue to develop these already great relationships that we have with local school districts, but continue to expand those and meet the changing needs of teachers, students, and the communities as the needs of education continue to change. We also are working to grow the ages and cultural diversity of our audience throughout the community. One thing that we have done and will continue to do is we try to do our best to provide programs and learning opportunities for everyone. We want folks to be able to see a program, an event, an exhibit that they can see themselves in. They can see themselves in these programs. They can see themselves in these exhibits. That's very key, and we're working to do that. I think we're doing a good job of that, but we're going to continue to work to expand the ages and cultural diversity of our audience as we continue to go forward. Key staff working on this particular objective is going to be our education and programming staff. Funding source, we're going to use our operating budgets, and sometimes we even use grant programs and other donation programs to help further funding of these related initiatives. And again, as I already mentioned, this is ongoing, and it's happening right now. But as we continue to expand and meet the needs of the community and those who participate in our school and public programs, it's going to happen in the short and medium term future, and probably long term. Something that we will always work to do is to provide these awesome, positive learning experiences for everyone in Champaign County and beyond. Another guiding document we have is a document known as the Interpretive Plan, helping guide our education and interpretation in all the work that we do. That includes, as I mentioned, school programs, public programs, exhibits, interpretation, other forms of signage, and various other things. So I think that there is...
There's another one.
More, yeah. So another part of working to...
Oh, no.
Working towards this educate, inspire, lead objective, that's a part of the CCFPD strategic plan, is to inspire visitors to make a connection between their own personal history and that of the community and environment. And we invite that audience to be good stewards of natural and cultural history. So as I mentioned before, this is looking more at, again, folks seeing themselves in all of the work that we do in the Museum and Education Department, seeing themselves in programs. They see a program and an event that is for them, and they see people that look like them at these programs and events, and we're meeting people where they are. And we would love, much like Katie mentioned before, inviting folks to send in recommendations for community partnerships. We would love for any recommendations or suggestions for future programs and events, or future exhibit topics or interpretation topics. You could say, hey, we'd love for you to do a program that focuses on this, or we'd love to see an exhibit that talks about this great piece of natural cultural history. We're always open to comments and suggestions, so send those in to us, whether it's in the comment section here, or as Barb mentioned, she'll provide her email address as well at the end. So some other more specific pieces that we're going to use to try and achieve this part of Objective 3 be to revise and expand our exhibit plan to allow folks to further connect with their personal histories, create an interpretive plan for a new nature center. We're working as a department, as a district, as a community to develop a new nature center at Homer Lake Forest Preserve. Very exciting development that is ongoing, and so looking to create an interpretive plan for that nature center. Also continue to work on trailside interpretation. We have the Museum of the Grand Prairie and the Homer Lake Interpretive Center, where there are some awesome, engaging exhibits at both of these facilities, but also throughout the County Forest Preserve District and beyond, there are interpretive opportunities, whether it's trailside signs in our, on our trails within our forest preserves, or I know Barb and the Museum of the Grand Prairie helped to develop wayside signs for the Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area in Illinois as well. So continue to work on that trailside interpretation, again, to inspire folks to see themselves, to see their histories represented in all forms of our interpretation. And then lastly, focus interpretive efforts on restorative properties of nature and learning. A big goal as part of Forest Preserve District, as well as within our education department. So key staff working on this, again, would be the education and programming staff, but we're talking about exhibits and interpretation. So our exhibit curatorial team will also be involved helping fund these initiatives would be part of our operating budget, as well as some larger capital project funding and potentially some fundraising, either through targeted fundraising efforts, pursuing specific grants, and many other things. A timeline to achieve these, again, I think this is ongoing. It's, we're working to do this now, but to help to expand this, this is going to be a medium and long-term goal, things that we'll continue to work on throughout our existence. And then the guiding plans, we also have, in addition to the strategic plan and the interpretive plan that I mentioned previously, an exhibit plan, a plan to figure out what sort of exhibits and interpretation we'll have at our facilities, as well as for example, those trailside signs as well, to create forms of interpretation. So I think that is it for objective 3, if I'm not mistaken, Barb.
You're right. So we're on objective 4, and I asked Kathy Snyder to speak to that. So Kathy's back. Kathy, our interpretive naturalist,
yeah.
to talk about objective 4.
Hi.
Thank you.
No problem. So this objective is from the CCFPD one, promote healthy lifestyles through recreation. And the Museum and Education Department goal is promote outdoor recreation that is compatible with our land management practices and natural beauty of the land. I feel like this goal has really had a spotlight on it for the past couple years. And we've gotten to see the number of visitors to the preserves rise. And we just want to keep doing that to provide healthy ways for people to come out and explore the preserves. So we had our goals in doing this, ways to make it happen, continue things like fishing, birding, gardening programs, walks and hikes, and self-guided activities. Explore collaborations. Example, we've done things with Healthy Champaign County and the Community Coalition, and expand self-guided opportunities on trails, in parks, and at the museum. We really want to meet people where they're at and have a lot of levels of abilities and comfort levels to help people come out and increase their health wellness. Key staff for this are our education programming and curators. This is kind of it seeps into every part of our department, and we can work together, all hands on deck, to come up with ways to promote this. Our funding source is our operating funding, but we also have our capital funding. Timeline, it's short to medium, and it's also ongoing. And we're using our interpretive plan and exhibits plan to help promote these things.
Excellent, Kathy. Thank you very much. And I will take the 5th objective because it's about organizational excellence. So that is the Forest Preserves objective, and our goal, we have a couple of them under this objective. The first one is to increase financial resources to optimize the mission. All of those things that we just talked about obviously need financial resources. We're going to evaluate our fees. We're going to develop focused objectives for the Advancing Equity Fund. The Advancing Equity Fund, in case you're not aware, is a fund that we've had for about 10 years as a department that subsidizes field trips, that subsidizes groups that would like to come visit us from underrepresented, underserved, or traditionally marginalized groups. And it also makes possible internships from those underrepresented or underserved groups. And so we want to keep that stream of donations coming into that fund so that we can continue to use that fund to help folks get to us, and we can serve the entirety of the forest preserve of the county and the area better. Going to enhance fundraising strategies through donations, grants, and alternative sources of revenue. If you look back at all the other things we hope to do, fundraising is a funding source listed on most of them. So obviously we have to do that. And then we're talking about creating an endowment for the museum. We've had a couple of pretty large donations recently, and we think that it's quite possibly time for us to start an endowment. Obviously, this is an administrative task, and there might be some operating funds involved, but there was going to be a lot of fundraising funds involved here. It's a long-term, ongoing, forever goal to raise money, and we need to develop a financial plan. So that's part of the objective as well. And then there's another side to organizational excellence, and that is that we want to hire and retain quality staff and make sure that the staff that we have is not overstressed, has the adequate training that they need, get good benefits, and have a good work environment, and really feel recognized. So one of the best ways to recognize people is and to make sure that people have what they need is to make sure they have the training they need, the professional training they need. And then we would like to be able to provide staffing for all those lofty goals that we just gave you, and make sure that they're not out of whack with what we are actually able to achieve. The Forest Reserve has a compensation committee, and we need to always be represented on that, obviously. The Forest Reserve does have a human resources department, and so we want to make sure that we coordinate our trainings with them, so that if there are things that are specific to us, we want to make sure that those get offered. But they might also be useful for the rest of the Forest Reserve, so we need to coordinate there. As I said, we need to develop not only the staff, but also internships to meet our goals, and of course, incorporate diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion into everything we do, including training programs. Oh my gosh, I assigned myself a really long one here. And then our last objective is to foster transparent and active communication within our own organization, which is always a goal for every organization, I think, because people are people and they don't often always communicate well. So we're going to develop tools to facilitate meetings, not only within ourselves, but between the departments of the Forest Preserve, to make commitment to spend more time together throughout the Forest Preserves, and to recognize that we all have different strengths and that we can build with those. So those are all of our objectives. And then we determine kind of who our audiences are, and these are where our facilities are. And then I think probably we should add a little bit more about where our preserves are. We have 7 preserves now, like the Woods, where the museum is, Homer Lake, where the Interpretive Center is, Middle Fork River Forest Preserve, Sangamon River Forest Preserve, Heron View, River Bend, and the Kickapoo Rail Trail is that long, skinny Forest Preserve. So now we'd love to have any questions you might have about our plan. And if you would like me to send you our more specific plan, I'd be happy to do that. All you need to do is email me. My email is bgarvey, BGARVEY, at ccfpd.org, or you can find me on the Museum of the Grand Prairie webpage, or the Champaign County Forest Preserve District webpage. So any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions come in just yet, Barb, but
Okay.
But
Anybody
no,
have any comments?
folks asked if they could get a copy of the presentation. I did a couple times put a link into the comments here, linking the strategic plan, a copy of it. A copy of it can also be found on museumofthegrandprairie.org, right on our homepage. And then also, I'm sure if you, again, as Barb mentioned, you could reach out to her and she'd be happy to provide you a copy as well. But no, I mean, we had quite a few folks tuning in from all different parts
All over the place.
of the Midwest here. So
Yeah.
really appreciate everybody tuning in, and
Yeah.
all the staff that are still backstage in helping, not only put this whole plan together, but explain it in a little bit more detail today. So.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody's help. Thank you very much for being here today. I did have a question yesterday. Someone said, well, 20% of your population is in poverty. How do you plan to include them? And I will say that I think it's a deficit in our plan, that our plan is very directed by us to a point. We have included our volunteers in the process. It has been reviewed by our fellow museums, by our foundation, by our Museum Advisory Committee, which is a small committee of museum professionals that reviews most of our plans and our collections. And the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Forest Preserve District. And we've given it to a lot of individuals to read as well. I would say that our Advancing Equity Fund has been very successful in those 10 years in bringing people to the Forest Preserve. And I think that you'll see throughout our goals that we are working very hard to include as many folks as we can. And my fondest hope is that our next plan, because this is a 5-year plan, will be much more inclusive of those of all. It will come even more from the community than this one has. So that would be my answer to that one question I had. Do you have any other questions?
Not seeing any. Should I bring the staff that are still here back on for any?
Sure, please do. I would love to.
And final words.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here comes the Brady Bunch here. All right, I think that's everybody that's with us today.
So I didn't introduce I guess this appears the same on everybody's screen, right? So on one side of me is Pat Kane, who's been talking to you. On the other side of me is Sandy Osborne, who has been at the museum for how many years, Sandy?
25.
25 years. She's seen it all. She's probably seen a few plans before this.
Yes, I've seen many plans.
Sandy is retiring at the end of the year, and we want to thank her for her service to the Forest Preserve, to the people of Champaign County, and of course the Museum and Education Department. But thanks for being here today too, Sandy. And then just to the bottom left of me, I don't know how this is working out, but Angela, could you wave your hand so we can recognize and thank you? That's Angela Whitlock, and Angela is possibly close to our newest employee. She's been here for a couple of years. How long have you been here, Angela?
I've been here since the end of 2019, I believe.
Okay, so yeah, a couple of years, but you volunteered before that. So, and she works at our front desk. She does all kinds of other really valuable things for us. So I wanted to make sure that she got recognized as well. Below me is Katie Snyder. Katie Snyder is our education program specialist at the museum again. And Kathy Schneider. I think that's not funny. Katie Snyder, Kathy Schneider. Kathy Schneider is right under Sandy. and she's our interpretive naturalist at the Homer Lake Interpretive Center. And then Mark Hanson on the bottom in a class by himself, our curator at the Museum of the Grand Prairie. So thank you all so much for your help with this morning. We would love to hear from you later. If you don't feel like you want to ask a question or make a comment in public, that's fine. And that email address is bgarvey@ccfpd.org. Anything else, guys? Anybody have any parting words they want to say? Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off. Pat, can you make that happen?
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.